As the father of a fourth grader, a second grader, and kindergartner, I know I'm looking forward to any advice you can provide. And I know everyone who watches this video is also going to be super excited to learn some best practices as we all gear up for the upcoming school year. So thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. How are you managing these days, by the way? I know school's starting up for you soon, isn't it?
It's been fun. We're starting on Monday, so I've been doing a lot of professional developments all week, and yeah, I got my office here at home, and things are different, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing how we're all
yeah, I can only imagine how time-consuming it's been. I know a lot at our school. A lot of people have been putting in a lot of time, effort, and thought into getting ready for the school year.
It's a really different way of teaching, but it's actually really exciting. There's so many different apps and opportunities and games, and I think it's going to open up a lot of doors. So as challenging as it is, it's also a good time for a new beginning. So we're excited.
Grateful for you being able to be here today and help us with some advice. So if you're ready, you want to get started?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, everyone. I'm Aaron Wace. I'm a litigation partner here at MSK. Thank you for turning into another one of our segments in our Wellness Wherever series. In this video, I'm being joined by Cheryl Kolker, who is a licensed marriage family therapist and an independent study coordinator with El Camino Real Charter High School. For years, she specialized in helping students achieve and perform inside and outside the classroom. And today, we're fortunate enough to have her here to offer advice to countless parents like myself who are going to be balancing working from home with distance learning this upcoming school year. And hopefully she'll help us achieve and perform in that aspect of our lives as well.
So, well, I guess number one is really to be prepared, because the more prepared you are on the onset, the less interruptions you're going to have as a parent. So definitely, I guess some of the things that I was going to say seem to be pretty obvious, but they're really important, especially right now. Having a specific area where your child is accustomed to working, and making sure that that area is prepped with everything that you can think of that they're going to need. So just as if they were going to school with their backpack, having pencils and paper and obviously their computer, and knowing how to use their computer and getting onto the sites that they're going to be having to get on, making sure that all of that is established early on will definitely make it a lot less stressful come the day of and the months to come.
Yeah,
so making sure there's water. Anticipating all the things that...
Go ahead, sorry. Already having Zoom.
Anticipating all the things that your child will need is really important right now.
Yeah, I mean, I know one of the struggles we had last spring was, especially as the school years continued to creep on, our oldest daughter in particular wanted to spend most of her time in her bedroom doing her work, and even from her bed, and just trying to get her out and get into a specific space where she could, learn. Do you have any other recommendations for the right type of environment?
Yeah,
that really fosters learning?
Absolutely, it really is important, and I think making that space really welcoming, and not like, oh, this is the place that I go to work, but oh, this is the exciting place that I go to work, and having it kind of special to them. One of the things I do with my students, I work with high school students, but I have them do a vision board and sort of decorating their space so it's inviting, because doing their work from bed, a lot of my students did that as well, and it's challenging because and it makes it challenging at night also, because that's your sleep spot. And so it's what that has done is it's turned everybody's schedules all around. There's a lot more time in bed, and there's no sort of distinguishing, this is time for school, this is time for bed, this is time for play.
That's actually a really good point. I noticed over the summer our daughter definitely had trouble falling asleep and has been staying up later, and that could be one reason why. So that's a really good piece of advice.
Absolutely. And
I
getting
know
dressed.
another thing. Go ahead. Sorry.
Getting dressed, I think, is also important. And at the beginning, that was our joke, right? I'm gonna go from my day pajamas to my night pajamas. But it doesn't mean that they have to get in something uncomfortable, but something that they feel like they are, just like we get in the mood to go to work, even if it's just the top. It's a different mindset when you change your clothes.
Yeah.
So I would
I know.
definitely encourage that.
Absolutely. I know another thing that we noticed that was a huge difference is sort of the difference between parenting and teaching. There's a huge difference in my mind between, we as parents we teach, but there's a big difference between teaching life lessons or helping your child with their homework as opposed to being a full-time educator. Educating children takes a completely different skill set. We also, as I think everyone knows, children respond differently to us as parents as opposed to their teachers.
Right.
They actually listen to their teachers, for example. I guess what kind of
Sometimes.
advice can you give to parents to get us into the right headspace to teach rather than to just parent?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm gonna sort of sidestep your question, but it's relevant. I think that it's really important to take very good care of ourselves as parents, because we are burnt out, and having double duty, right? Having to play teacher and play parent, and when we are stressed, that comes off on our children, and it makes us less effective as a parent and less effective as an educator. So being taking good care of yourself, for one, which is whatever that means to you, meditating, journaling, getting exercise, and sort of, I want to say, leaving the teaching to us, but being more of an advocate, not even an advocate, being more of a listener for your child and sort of empathizing, stepping back into your parent role, but not as a, you need to do this, but sort of stepping back and understanding how difficult it is for them and really just becoming a listener, and let them teach you. Let them teach you.
Yeah.
Go figure, right? Not what you're expecting.
Who knew? Who knew? Yeah. It's difficult, you were speaking about sort of taking care of ourselves as parents. I know one of the difficult things is that, myself as a litigator, for example, I have long stretches during the day when I'm focusing on a brief and I really need to concentrate. My wife is a lawyer too, but she works in-house and she's on the phone for literal hours in a row. And so trying to find time for ourselves is difficult, but at the same time, like trying to find time to both work and teach our children at the same time where, they seem to need constant attention and you can't always just put them in front of a screen for hours on time.
No,
Um,
definitely not.
and so, one thing we struggle with is how do you sort of manage that dynamic between trying to find the time for yourself, whether it's to do work, whether it's time to take a beat and exercise versus giving your children the attention they need, managing that dynamic.
It's a great question. And if I had a nickel for every time I was asked it, and if I had the answer, I would be a lot better off. However, I do think that just like we schedule appointments with our clients, I think it's very, very important to schedule appointments for fun and be flexible. Even because what happens with our children is the more times they are told, not right now, I'm busy, that the more annoyed they get and the more annoyed we get. So we're taking time away, telling them that we can't give them time. Whereas if we really just gave them a couple of minutes and just literally just looked them in the eye and gave them a hug, or gave them a few minutes and said, hey, I don't have a whole lot of time right now, but let's play a game for 5 minutes. Let's walk the dog. Let me just give you a hug. Like whatever that is, that will take less time than all the time that you're telling them that you don't have time, if that makes sense. So,
No, it makes
and
total
that's
sense.
to take care of yourself and to take care of your child, because you need that too. We all need that. So
Yeah.
we're kind of
No,
feeding each other.
yeah. It's interesting. Like one of the ways I try to take care of myself is I'll go for a run or go for a bike ride. And I don't quote unquote schedule it, but they know that's what daddy's about to go do for the next, 45 minutes, whatever it is. And to your point, I think one thing that we found effective was even if we were busy working on something, I'd have them sit down in the room with me and, read a book, just be here near me. And if you have a question or need me to tell you what a word is, I can do that. Or you can just draw pictures and they would run outside on the balcony and like look around and draw a picture and then I could check it out. And even though I was still working, we were able to spend time together sort of contemporaneously.
Yeah. Sounds like you're doing a really good job.
I wouldn't go that far, but we're doing our best.
You know what? I think part of this time is being gentle with ourselves, being patient with ourselves and being patient with our kids because, this is still new for everybody. I mean, I was at a meeting today and the administrators, couldn't figure out the how to get on certain sites, and we're all gonna flub up right now, and we have to be okay with that and laugh and enjoy the process and not take ourselves or our children too seriously. Not to say not to let them make sure that they're accountable, but to try to balance those two things is very important.
Yeah, you mentioned, and we've had to deal with this a lot. Mentioned someone having trouble getting onto Zoom. I know that one of our big struggles in the spring was whether it was because our, then third grader was on Google Classroom and our then first grader was on Class Dojo, and everyone was on a different type of technology, and those technologies were inevitably either difficult for them to circumnavigate or for us to navigate. There were always snafus or someone having trouble connecting to a Zoom call. Do you have any advice? I mean, obviously you can't prevent those things from happening, but any tips for how to manage those issues and sort of be ready to respond to them?
Well, I don't, but I do think that the teachers are going to be way more on top of that because normally in the classroom, the first few weeks, we spend literally teaching our students how to learn, teaching them the norms, teaching them how to line up, teaching them what's appropriate. So now that we're online, that time, those first few weeks are going to be spent on computer, not literacy, but computer, I'm blanking on the word, but how to be in front of your screen and all the things that you need to know, all these questions that you are asking, hopefully your teacher, your child's teacher will really address them because that's what we're discussing in my school right now. Just because, this is new. Again, I know I keep saying the same thing, but it really is. And even though we did it from March to June, this is a whole different set of norms that we're going to be having. And hopefully they will improve things, but at the beginning it's going to be messy.
So how do you think, I was going to say, how do you think we as parents can best help you guys in terms of re-emphasizing whatever it is you're teaching with the children and as to technology and how to utilize it?
I really think it's about attitude. And again, I know I'm not really answering your questions, but the only reason I'm dodging them is because there aren't really answers to those questions. But we can't prevent the problems, but we can prevent our response to the problems. And if we say, oh, there we go, we're being, we did it again, and we are gentle with ourselves and gentle with our kids, it's not going to be as big a deal. And you will have much less frustration, and so will your child. And that's the goal here, just to ease the pain.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense because I know one of the issues that we're certainly dealing with is the social emotional aspect of this, particularly as I think back to this past spring, right? And it was don't worry, this will be temporary. It's not going to be a long-term thing. And then, we went into the summer and we continued to be isolated and they weren't seeing their friends as much, weren't going to summer camp. And now we're looking at doing remote learning when we go back to school again. I can't really tell our children anymore, at least not with any credibility, hey, this is a temporary thing. And at the same time, you see the children getting increasingly frustrated with the situation and not being able to see their kids. What are there tips you have for how we should be managing the social emotional aspects of this situation and the uncertainty of the situation as well?
Yeah, once again, it's going to be my same answer. The way we handle it is the way they're going to handle it. So if we are modeling calm, you know, just if we're modeling calmness, they're going to pick up on our calmness. If we're modeling frantic behavior, that's what they're going to feel, and that's how they're going to behave. So obviously they can't be getting together with their friends, but they can get outside, and I think that is really important right now. The teachers also are knowing that, depending on the grade level, certain students can't sit for more than maybe 10, 15 minutes. So they will be encouraging them to get up, and there will be a lot more camaraderie even online. Over the months, the online community has gotten a lot more intimate, and that has been really helpful. Not to say that it's going to take those problems away, and it is very strenuous on social emotional behavior right now, because we are all in such an unusual and uncharted territory. So being as patient and loving with, again, yourself and your child, and making light of it, making it fun, is really going to help a lot.
Yeah.
It's all about the attitude.
So no more when I get frustrated throwing the iPad across the room. Got it.
Exactly.
Got it.
It's modeling how you want them to respond to frustration, and using words. Oh, I'm really frustrated right now. Darn, or maybe not darn, but I'm gonna take a walk around the block, or I'm gonna do a few jumping jacks or a few push-ups. Modeling productive behavior is exactly a lesson in itself. And I think that we have a lot to teach our children right now about how to deal with difficult situations.
Yeah. I know, another issue is that children with anxiety or other sort of issues such as that, this is certainly going to exacerbate those pressures on them. Any tips for, children with anxiety, as parents, how we can deal with that, or what to expect as distance learning continues in confronting that?
Yeah, I think the main thing is not diminishing their feelings and not saying, oh, don't worry, everything's going to be fine, because they are worried. So I think it's important to mirror their feelings. You're really scared right now. I get it. It is a scary time. What do you think would make, listen to them. Really let them have a voice, and don't try to make it better all the time, because right now you can't make it better. And sometimes just allowing them the freedom to express themselves, whether that's coloring, like you said, or playing, will really help them a lot, because they're so used to being told, they're so used to not being heard, not because we're not amazing parents, a lot of us, but just because we don't have the time. And they really need to be heard, and they need extra attention right now. And that is the challenge. But I think that, again, like I said before, giving them that extra attention will provide a safety and a security, and not minimizing their feelings, but really understanding that, yeah, it is a really stressful time. I understand. A lot of times as parents, we think we have to fix their problems, and that's not our job. Our job is really to just hear them. And just, if you can remember how good it feels just to have somebody to talk to, that's what our children need right now.
That's really good advice, actually. It's really good advice.
Good.
Yeah.
It's resonating, huh?
No, it's interesting. It's like, especially now, and I see this with our children, it's, on the one hand, you get to see them way more than you ever got to see them before, right? You're not going into the office, you're at home. And on the flip side, it's they get to see you way more, and they want to see you as much as possible in certain respects. and when they come to you, it usually is with a problem, right? And your immediate reaction as a parent is, how can I fix this? And it's helpful to remember that sometimes, as with everything,
Right.
even if you can't fix it, just listening to what they need and and being there for them is just as important.
Eye contact and a hug does wonders, way more than all of the words we think that we need to figure out.
Right. Yeah. And I assume that's also true, and that would be your answer. My second grader in particular can get very frustrated with her schoolwork. And when she does, I know her reaction with me is different than the one she has with her teacher. And it's because I ask her, I'm like, well, when you don't know the answer, you don't know how to do something, do you throw a temper tantrum in your classroom? And she's like, no. I'm like, so let's pretend you're in school and let's deal with it how you would deal with it at school. But as much as I try to do that, I'm not a full-time educator, and sometimes I revert to sort of the parent reaction instead of a teacher reaction. So, what are ways that are better suited to helping your kids get through the frustration of whatever this, or get to those answers that's from a teacher-centric focus as opposed to how I might respond as a parent?
Well, I'm going to answer it with my same advice. I'm going to say validate. Wow, you're really feeling frustrated right now. Just validating their feeling instead of telling them what to do or what not to do. I wonder how that will play out, because I have a feeling usually when I suggest that to parents, it's very, very helpful. They want to be acknowledged. You don't have to indulge it and say, oh, you poor baby. It's just, I see you're frustrated right now. That's it. It's very simple. It's not, don't do that. It's not, let's do this. It's sometimes they need to sit with their frustration for a minute, and like they would do in the classroom, they're going to come back. But sometimes as parents, as well-intended parents, we end up manifesting more of the problem instead of eliminating the problem. So just allowing them that feeling will sometimes, and knowing and letting them know that you understand, will sometimes make that temper tantrum or that frustration take a lot shorter than the other ways that we've been trying to work them out.
Right. Are there any other ways to have your, sort of, last year was sort of, all right, right now I'm your parent, now I'm your teacher, we're going to learn this math lesson together. Are there any other ways or tips you'd recommend for having your child sort of look to you as a teacher as opposed to a parent in those moments, or is that just not realistic?
Well, like I said, I believe that there will be a lot more opportunities for online learning than there was last time. I think last time, from what I heard from elementary teachers and students, was that there was a lot of just giving paperwork and here, parents, you have to figure this out with your child. There are a lot of resources online. There's one called Khan Academy, and there are a lot of different websites that kids can go to that are at their level, and providing those will most likely give better answers than you will be able to give. And so maybe helping them, again, hopefully the teachers will be doing this, but helping them learn how to find the answers is a more important lesson than giving them the answers. It's like that when we give someone comes looking for fish, and instead we give them a pole, right? So then they can learn to feed themselves. I'm not telling it the right way, but you get the gist.
Yeah, so give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Give him a pole, he'll eat for life.
Thank you, that one. That's what I'm trying to say. Exactly. So we want to help them figure out how they can find those answers. That's a good question. Where should we look to find that? And you can do it as a team, but don't do it for them, because I think that's what ends up frustrating us and them. And the message when we do it for them is that you can't do this, but I can. Whereas doing it together, eventually, if you're going to need to do it together at the beginning, but eventually they're going to stop coming to you and they're going to start doing it on their own.
Yeah.
Make sense?
And when they do start doing it on their own, that was actually one of the next questions I had was, our oldest daughter, for example, is a little more independent, and I'm sure, parents with kids in junior high and high school, those children are going to be doing things a lot on their own and with very little supervision. But that raises sort of the specter of how do you sort of ensure that they're doing the work they're supposed to do without them feeling like you're all in their business, for lack of a better phrase.
That's a very tricky, slippery slope. But in the upper grades, I don't know if the younger grades have ARIES, but there are ways for parents to check online. And so rather than asking your child, it's probably a better idea to just go online and look for themselves and see if there are problems before assuming that there are. Because you're right, the older your child gets, the more of you have to start stepping back a little bit. Otherwise, it won't work very well.
Yeah.
So it is a tricky, slippery slope, like I said.
Yeah. And what about with schedules, for example? Do you have any? I know we tried to settle on a schedule last year, like from 9 to 12 we'll do this, and from this to this we'll do that, and we tried various different schedules, and none seemed to work out. Do you have obviously a lot of this will be dependent on a person's school and when online learning is going to be taking place, but are there feelings about kids should be learning earlier in the day, first thing in the morning as opposed to the afternoon? Is it sort of dependent on your family situation?
I'm going to say both. There is research saying that 8 o'clock is too early for kids. So some of the schools are actually starting lessons at 9 now. But I've always said I think it's better to get the work out of the way first and then the play. But at the same time, it's really important to take a lot of breaks. And I'm gonna go with it really has to do with your family. And I do think that the teachers will have a lot more structure this semester than we did in the last semester when we first went on this interesting schedule or lack thereof.
Yeah, no, I know it was just speaking from personal experience, it just differed from child to child and class to class. Some
Absolutely.
teachers
Absolutely.
had, who were more familiar with technology were doing more live learning. Others were relying on worksheets.
Correct.
It was a hodgepodge.
Correct.
But, it was also,
Right.
to your point, it was also a reflection of this was out of the blue in many respects. It's one day we were going to school and the next day we weren't. So people really had to scramble. Yeah. I guess in conclusion, any final sort of thoughts or tips you want to share?
I want to say to definitely take breaks, be patient with yourself. Oh, one of the other things is that I was thinking is to break up tasks into smaller chunks. Just like it's hard for us to sit for a long periods of time, really difficult for students. And I think what the younger the child, obviously, the less of an attention span they have. But even with older kids, I know you don't have older kids yet, but breaking things up into chunks, because what's happening for a lot of not only students, but all of us is we start to feel really overwhelmed. And so we end up doing nothing. And so just saying, you know what, just for today, let's just work on this one little thing. And one little thing a day or an hour ends up to being a big project. And I think that's a really important thing to remember, because overwhelm is big right now. And not knowing where to get started, especially for older kids, is very difficult and stressful, to say the least. And just again, like I started out saying, a lot of self-care for all ages. Maybe do yoga with your kids, do a little something fun, something where you can get your exercise and your needs met and be with the kids, but also something that is going to be rewarding for them and let them, get their energy out. So, yeah, just have fun with it. Make it an adventure instead of a hardship. And I think, that's always been my biggest parenting tip. No matter what it is, there's always not only a silver lining, but there's a way to make it fun. And if we can do that and keep a sense of humor about us and make sure, again, to take really good care of ourselves, we're modeling good behavior, we're modeling good habits for our children. And that, I think, is more important than a lot of the things they're learning. If you can communicate with your kids and collaborate and commiserate, those are things that they'll take with them forever. And they'll remember this time with fondness, and the truth is even though right now it feels like forever, in a year or hopefully sooner, this is going to be history. We're making history. And again, not to take ourselves so seriously, I think is really the biggest takeaway I can give.
No, I hear you. You got to just sort of embrace what life throws at you and run with it.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to reach out. There's a lot of therapists available, and I think, knowing when you can't handle it anymore and you need to reach out for that next level of care or help.
Yeah. No, that's a good point too. Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know.
It's my pleasure, Aaron.
I learned a lot.
Everybody learned. Good.
Yeah.
Good. I'll be anxious to hear how it all goes.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much.
Okay. My pleasure. Good luck to you.
All right. Thanks.